This is Chris Carlson, and welcome to the Boulder Banking Podcast. My guest is Natalie Bartholomew, Community President for First Community Bank in Northwest Arkansas. In this episode, Natalie shares her inspiring journey in banking from being a fifth-generation Arkansas resident to her current role as a Community President at First Community Bank. She discusses the importance of community banks and their expansion strategies, touching on the crucial role of marketing and the impact of AI in the industry. Natalie delves into her experience as a faculty member at the Graduate School of Banking, shedding light on her teachings and the future of the banking industry. She also shares her passion for advocating for women in banking and talks about the evolution of the Girl Banker platform into a supportive community for female bankers across the country. Tune in as Natalie provides an insightful perspective on the future of banking and the empowerment of women in the industry. Natalie, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I'm honored to be here.
Natalie, I'm excited about our conversation today, but before we get started, can you give us a brief background of Natalie Bartholomew?
Oh, I'm just such an interesting person, Chris. I don't even know where to start. Joking. I am a fifth generation Northwest Arkansas resident. I'm the fifth generation on my family's farm. My boys are the sixth generation, married my high school sweetheart, and we live in Prairie Grove, Arkansas. I've been in banking this will be my 23rd year. Started when I was 6 years old. But I started when I was 18 as a part-time teller at a regional bank, and was a third generation banker, actually. My grandfather worked at that bank before it was acquired by the larger regional bank, and just always knew that I wanted to be a banker. And I was really adamant about being a banker and made sure that those around me knew that I wanted to be a banker, and just stuck with it and worked my way through the end of high school and college and graduate school, and was given a loan officer position whenever I graduated with my master's degree, and started with a $0 portfolio, and it was at a very interesting time in banking. Learned a lot from other people making mistakes and other lessons that they were learning, because it was around 2006 to 2007. So a very interesting time to get into the lending side of the bank. And just had some amazing opportunities throughout my career to advance and have different roles at different banks. And very appreciative to my experience at Graduate School of Banking, Colorado, that I think definitely played a big part of that. And now I find myself in a community president role at First Community Bank here in Northwest Arkansas, and can truly say that all the different experiences and roles that I've had in my career over the last 23 years have definitely formed me and shaped me into to be able to execute this role. And I'm very thankful for that. Have a great team. Had the opportunity to put together, kind of handpick a team to start a new market for First Community Bank. And we have been here in Rogers going on working towards year 2, and in the process of adding our second location. So we're fast and furious and growing, and it's been a wild ride. So happy to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about First Community Bank.
Sure. It is a community bank, obviously, as our name states, based out of Batesville, Arkansas. We have been around since 1997. And truly just the epitome of a community bank. And I know there's a lot of community bankers listening to this, so I'm preaching to the choir. But very, very invested in the communities that we serve. We are currently knocking on the door of $3 billion. I think we will hit that in 2024. And we, have a mentality in terms of how we hire and how we expand into new markets, that we are very people focused. Obviously, people bank with people. And when we find the right people, we feel that that's our recipe for success. And that certainly worked well for us. So as I mentioned earlier, we are expanding into our second market. So we started in Northwest Arkansas here in Rogers. And our next market will be in Fayetteville, which is where the University of Arkansas is, and look to add additional branches here in Northwest Arkansas. Our Northwest Arkansas is very concentrated with banks. And so I feel that our success is truly a testament to the team that we have here. Definitely still feel that there is room for the physical brick and mortar for a bank. I know that innovation plays a key, it's a hot topic in banking, has been for a while and continues to be. But I think that starting this new market and working for a very community focused bank, that I'm still seeing that need is still there to have people that you know and trust that are in the bank walls that you can reach out to. And we're seeing that come to fruition every day.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, especially to your point where we're seeing so many branches close. I mean, you
Hmm.
guys are actually opening branches in
Yeah.
communities that you want to be in.
Yeah, and there's definitely still a place for that. And that's not to say that, there's not still a place for innovation and for technology. There's very much a need for that. But the branch that I currently am in right now is a temporary space that we're leasing. It was just to help us get up and going here in Northwest Arkansas. And it was initially going to be a mortgage production office. And so when I entered the chat and the rest of my team entered the chat, it became a full service branch. Is this location geared towards being a full service branch? Probably not. We have some logistical issues, some parking. We have a huge hotel that's being constructed directly in front of us that currently consumes all of our parking. So we're kind of going through some pain points there, but we're really leaning into the people piece of the bank. So whether we're kind of doing private banking without calling it private banking, doing a lot of DocuSigns, so still needing that technology, but really putting the people piece in play of taking the bank to individuals, whether it be making house calls or office calls, whatever that case may be. But definitely still see a need for that people element in the brick and mortar.
Now, you mentioned you're a graduate of GSBC and now you are
Hmm.
on the faculty of GSBC. What course do
Yes.
you teach there?
Yes, the name of my course, and let me mention, this is I've been on the faculty, very fortunate to be a part of this amazing faculty for a few years, and the title of my class has kind of evolved and changed over the last couple of years. But this next year for this session, the name of it is Becoming a Change Agent for the Customer Experience.
Now, that is a mouthful.
It is. It is. It is a 1 week course. So it's an elective for second and third year students. And, and initially, whenever I came on as a faculty member, it was very much focused towards social media. And while the course still discusses social media and how the role of social media affects the customer experience, there's a lot of deep dives into essentially the role of marketing and how it affects the customer experience within a community bank.
And then, just out of curiosity, Natalie, community banks and marketing, how do you think overall community banks are doing in that area?
That's a loaded question, Chris. I think that we still have a lot of, we have a lot of room for growth in that area. It kind of starts with the C-suite recognizing marketing as being, it having a role at the table or having a seat at the table. Marketing is not just cookies and punch marketing anymore, where you throw out a cake and some punch for a retirement party. Marketing is so much more than that. It really does play a role in the customer experience, and having an employee in that position that understands digital advertising, the role of social media, email marketing, not only event planning, but brand awareness, and all these moving parts that are constantly evolving, constantly changing. And having someone that is on top of that and empowering that employee to do what they do best, and bring those ideas and how the bank should react to that back to the table. It's so important. And so this class kind of discusses that. Sometimes, especially as far as social media is concerned, it's a rough place out there anymore on the socials. And so you can't just say, oh, let's throw that, at someone fresh out of college and put that at, that's something for the young folks. It's not. Social media is not new. It has been around for quite a while. I first joined Facebook when it first came out in 2003, back whenever you had to have a college email address to be on Facebook. And now look at it. Everybody and their dog has a Facebook page. And so this is not a new concept. And it's something that banks need to embrace, because if you don't, you're going to be left behind. And it's not just social media, it's so much more than that. And I think it's really important for banks to recognize that you need to have somebody that knows what they're doing, someone that you're empowering to have, continuing education as it's concerned. The algorithms in social media are changing constantly. The way that we need to reach our customers is changing and evolving. The way our brand, is being presented to our customers and our employees is changing constantly. And so I think banks need to make sure that they're hopping on the wagon of having someone that knows what they're are doing in this position. This just can't be something that you throw at somebody as, oh, well, just because you have to have it. This is a big piece of who we are and what our brand is. And so, I just don't know that all banks recognize that yet. I get some really interesting feedback in this course. I always ask the question on the first day of, what bank in the room is either who's on social, who's not on social. And it still just surprises me that here we are in 2024 or last year in 2023, and there's still banks that are not present on social media. It just really shocks me. So I don't know that we're quite where we need to be yet. I think we've got a lot of room for growth.
And Natalie, I know marketing is a passion of yours. How do you think AI is going to impact
Ooh.
marketing in the future?
Another loaded question. I think it's something that warrants being embraced. I think if we ignore it, it's going to take us over. I kind of jokingly say sometimes, carefully say that the robots are going to take us over. And so, if we aren't educating ourselves on what AI can do for us, and try to be in the driver's seat of that, I think we'll be in trouble. If we let it drive us and we don't try to drive it, I think that's where the problem is. I do think that there is, an opportunity, especially through ChatGPT, to utilize it correctly. I think it's really helpful on the marketing side when used the way it should be. But again, it's something that we need to consistently be educating ourselves on, so that we know how to use it for good.
Yeah, so let me ask you this: when it comes to GSBC, what impresses you most about the students at GSBC?
Oh my goodness. I obviously, and Josie told me before I agreed to do this podcast, you don't have to go on and do the hoorah and the cheerleading for GSBC. I typically do that because I'm so passionate about the school and think it's the best banking school in the country. But I am really impressed by how the diversity in students that I see each year in enrollment. You're not just seeing the good old boys club anymore attending banking school. You're seeing a lot of different roles, a lot of different positions, a lot of new perspectives that are coming in every year. And I think that just does, if anything, it makes the school better, and it makes every student better that goes back and is able to take that information back to their bank. The commitment, the level of commitment, being a student in a banking school, you've got individuals who are typically, a little bit later on in life, meaning that they aren't typically in the mindset of going to school. They have families, they have really demanding jobs. And so the commitment to take that time away from your job and that time away from your everyday life, you have to really be all in for this. And you really do see that at Graduate School of Banking at Colorado. And, every year I just keep seeing it just get better and better in that level of commitment. So I'm just so impressed with what this organization and this school has become over the years, and how the students are certainly reflecting that as well.
And Natalie, many people associate you with the girl banker. Can you tell us about the girl banker?
Sure. The Girl Banker is a platform. Really, it's more of a community anymore to advocate for women in banking. It was started out of just kind of a hope and a dream to try to not only bring more advocacy towards women in banking that are already in that space, but also to talk to young women about opportunities in banking. I'm kind of an anomaly in that I always have wanted to be a banker. And I have found that whenever I speak at conferences, typically one of the questions I always ask is, who in the room has always wanted to be a banker? And usually no one raises their hand. With women, in most cases, banking found them. They fell into it. It was a means to an end, or a quick, part-time job to get them through school, or, an introduction to, hey, I'll just build my resume. And then it turns into a long time career. But I feel that there's a lot of room to talk to young women about opportunities in the banking industry. Whenever I speak to high school classes, young women aren't thinking about careers in banking. And I think, the Girl Banker platform was kind of born out of recognizing a need for that, and a need for advocacy for women in the banking space. And so I just kind of one day, with the help of a good friend of mine, Allison Twiggs Dyer, who also is connected to GSBC, she had told me, you should really consider doing a blog. And at the time, I just did not see, what I had to say that was anyone would want to listen to or read. So I kept thinking, well, it just kept ruminating, there is something there, but what could I do? Because I was just really having this itch to have a voice out there. And so I started getting really involved on social media and connecting with a lot of bankers and bank related content that was out there on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. And there was a lot of tug and pull culturally at that time for women in leadership and a need for advocacy for women in general. And one day, Allison and I were at a conference, and the Girl Banker was kind of born at a back table. We should have been listening to the speaker, and we weren't. The Girl Banker was kind of born, and the phrase "the Girl Banker" or the name was really kind of a spin off of Girl Boss, which at the time was a catchy phrase. I think it's kind of garnered a disliking that phrase here in 2024. But I look at it as, it still can speak to young women. While also creating the community around women in banking. And so while it started as a blog and it started as this website and a social media presence, it's kind of bloomed into a podcast. So there's the Girl Banker podcast. There is now a Girl Banker store where you can get merchandise. So shop the Girl Banker, and and these speaking engagements. And so I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of women in banking around the country. And I think that the community that exists with the Girl Banker is truly the most valuable part of it. It has connected women in banking from across the country. And a lot of that lives in a Facebook group. So I started this Facebook group pre-COVID, really just because Facebook said that if you had a page out there that you needed to have a group. So I started the group, and just because I thought I had to have it, and had a couple of hundred women in it. And then the pandemic hits. And suddenly women in banking are needing to be connected. And there's lots of questions around processes and procedures and how are you doing this and how are you doing that? And then it evolved into, oh my gosh, I'm living at the office and trying to survive PPP and all those things that we were suddenly thrown into during the pandemic. And the group just continued to grow and grow and grow. And as it stands today, it's just shy of 9,000 women across the country. And to be in the group, you do have to be a woman in banking in the United States. And so I do go through a question and answer process to admit women in there. And I don't allow vendors, just because there's a lot of vendor discussions in that group. And so it's become an excellent resource for inspiration, again, for processes, procedures. How's your bank handling this? How are you handling that? Whether it be regulation or, hey, I'm looking for a job in this role, or, hey, I have a job available in this role. There's just a lot of incredible things happening in that group. And I kind of manage it on my own from day to day. It's a living, breathing monster, but it's a great resource. And I do have some fun things that I'm hoping to offer the members of that group and the community of women in banking across the country this next year, with some webinars, some additional podcast content, and all kinds of things. But if anything, if you were to say, what is the Girl Banker? The Girl Banker is not just me. The Girl Banker is definitely a community, and one that continues to grow.
So when you two troublemakers were sitting in the back of a room creating this, did you ever think that it would be where it is today?
No, I didn't. And I've learned a lot of things from having this platform, both good and bad. And anyone that's on social media now, that is in the content creation space knows this. I mean, there's a lot of community and there's a lot of good things, but there's a lot of bad things that can happen too. There's been, some naysayers and some trolls and things like that have happened as a result of it. But I'm constantly reminded of why I do it. And it's for this community. And so I would have never imagined it would be where it is now. But here we are. And I think it's going to continue to grow and evolve as time goes by.
Well, you mentioned your keynotes. In your talks around the country, what's your main message about women in banking?
The main message is that it's up to us. If we sit around and wait for change, if we sit around and wait for things to evolve, it's not going to happen. It takes voices like mine and like those that are active within this Girl Banker community to speak up for changing, whether it's HR practices that make our banks better places to work for women. there are a lot of women in this industry. Regardless of, contrary to popular belief, there are a lot of women in the banking space. Are we as women creating safe spaces for women to want to, work in this industry and to move up in this industry? It takes women in all those different roles. We need to have women in leadership. We need to have women in board roles so that it's a top down mentality. If we want to make it better for those in entry level positions and mid level positions, and we need to have women that have a voice in those upper level positions. And so, sometimes there is a stigma, and I see this a lot with women in banking, that it's not necessarily the men that you encounter that give you a hard time, because I've had a lot of men in my career that have been great mentors. But sometimes women actually create these challenges and obstacles for other women. And I think that is born out of a space of being territorial, that, hey, I had to work really, really hard to get to this role. And I've been the only woman in this role. And so another woman encroaching and coming up in the same bank is viewed as a threat, which is totally backwards from what it should be. If you crawled so that someone else could walk, that's the mentality that we need to have. There's room for us all. And so the message is really around that we've got to support one another. We have to do the work to create better workspaces for the other women in our industry. We have to speak up for them when they're not in the room. We have to advocate for them to go for that job, to go for that promotion. Women typically don't speak up for themselves, or they don't think that they're qualified yet, where our male peers don't think twice about putting themselves into a position for a promotion or to be hired for a certain role. So that advocacy and that support is really a big piece of that message. Sometimes I think that there's an incorrect view that, oh, this is a male bashing community. That is absolutely not what it is. If I have found anything, the majority of the criticism I've received from having this community or this platform has been actually from women, surprisingly. So we've got to change that narrative. We've got to flip that narrative. And, that's a lot about what those conversations are in those speaking engagements.
Well, here's another loaded question for you. What's the receptivity from males regarding the Girl Banker?
I have found that it has actually been very widely supported. I have, I mentioned earlier that I have the Girl Banker shop, and it's really just something fun because there was a lot of requests for hats and shirts and stickers and mugs and things of that nature. But I am surprised because I see every single order that comes in, the number of orders from men. And so I'm assuming that they are, males that are ordering these things for their female coworkers. And I think that's wonderful. I've seen a lot of support. There's rarely been any criticism. I do have a friend of mine that is a CMO of a large regional bank in the Southeast, and he does a lot of speaking engagements, and he jokingly calls himself the boy banker. So I don't think it's in a way of being critical. It's more of just saying, hey, he's along for the ride too, and he's supportive. But I can't say that I've been criticized very much by our male cohorts. I think everybody's been pretty supportive of it and I think that's really encouraging to women.
Now, you mentioned a couple of things you're looking to do this year. What does the future of the Girl Banker look like globally?
That's a great question, and one that has probably been asked of me since I started this platform. And, I'm a big strategic plan fan. I love creating a strategic plan for work. But I've never had one for the Girl Banker. I think that, part of it has been just being open to evolving and seeing where conditions take us, what the industry demands. I think there's room to expand, to not advocate just for women, but specifically for women of color. They have a whole different amount of challenges that I feel that there's room for that discussion that doesn't need to necessarily come from me. So opening doors for women of color to have a voice louder in this industry is very much needed. But just, and making sure that level of support and advocacy always remains. And it doesn't necessarily just need to be a voice from me. There's room for a lot of voices. I think it's been really exciting to see different banks creating different initiatives specifically for women. First Community Bank has a women's mentorship program that just kicked off for its second year here recently. I have a good friend that's in Nashville, and her bank created a whole sub brand called Her Bank. Brittany Campbell's her name, and so go check her out. And it's a sub brand that is really geared towards and being an advocate and creating a space for women in business to bank with women. And that's just one of many, many examples that I'm seeing out there that community banks are kind of creating these initiatives. There's a lot of discussion around the transfer of wealth, specifically as it relates to women over the next few years. And that's something that banks need to be paying attention to. And so I think the platform has room to grow towards, what that looks like. And is your bank positioned to handle that? And are the women in your bank ready to be a voice for that for your bank? And so it's not just advocacy for women in banking and speaking to young women about roles in that, but there's much more that I think the industry is going to continue to demand. So long story short, we'll just kind of see where it takes us. I also will recognize that my first and my priority is my bankroll, my job as a banker. And so the Girl Banker is kind of a secondary thing that takes up space in my mind 24/7, but it's not the priority. And so making sure that I'm balancing that appropriately as the platform grows, but also as my role at First Community Bank intensifies. So that's going to be a juggle that I'm going to have to handle, and we'll kind of see what happens as a result of that.
Well, knowing what I know about you, Natalie, I think you're more than qualified to handle those things.
Well, thank you. We'll see.
Well,
Fake it till we make it.
Yeah, I tell you, you said something I thought was really, really interesting about women in banking, but the idea that the Girl Banker could be it already is an impetus, but it could be a platform for how banks bank females, if you will, female individuals, female business owners. I mean, oh my goodness, there's just so much potential there. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but that's really, really exciting to be able to take that information out to that community.
Yes, I think that, banks need to be looking to their women in leadership and to be empowered to take this on because it's coming. It's not something that is just pie in the sky. Like there's data surrounding the amount of wealth that is about to transfer into the hands of women. And I have found that myself, even as a woman in banking here in Northwest Arkansas, I have certain women in business customers that want to work with a woman. And that's proving to be fruitful for us. So there's economical benefits to paying attention to this. And if this platform can help be, a vehicle for that, I'm happy to evolve in that direction.
Well, Natalie, you shared some great ideas today. If somebody wants to contact you, maybe to learn more about the Girl Banker or something else you talked about, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Absolutely. Natalie@thegirlbanker.com is an email address that you can reach out to me. I also try to be really active with responding to messages in my DMs. So I am on LinkedIn under Natalie Bartholomew. And I'm really probably most active on Instagram at The Girl Banker. You'll see a little bit of all the different moving parts of my life, which I hope makes me relatable because I'm just like everybody else out there trying to survive and balance, work-life balance, all those things. So you'll see a little bit of all those things on my Instagram. That's probably, again, where I'm most active, but feel free to reach out there. If you are a woman in banking, we would love to have you as a member of the Girl Banker group if you're not already. So search the Girl Banker group on Facebook and answer those questions and we'll let you in. I do have a group on LinkedIn. It's not as active, so that's kind of something, a work in progress there, but you can check it out as well.
Well, Natalie, you're juggling a lot of balls. I really do appreciate you taking time out of that busy schedule to visit with us today.
Yes. Thank you so much, Chris. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.